Hello Primary 3, today we are learning to measure capacity, or some of you might also know that as volume. Now capacity is the amount of liquid you can hold in a container, and we're going to learn how we measure this and what units of measurement we use to do this. One example of measuring capacity in day-to-day life is when you follow a recipe and it asks for a certain amount of liquid. For example, it might ask for a certain amount of milk or water. So today we are going to be looking at these units of measurement and learning how to read these on, for example, a measuring jug, and we'll also be recapping our skip counting to help with this. Okay, so one way we can measure capacity is through milliliters. We can use a measuring cylinder to measure very small capacities. The examples given here are some fizzy drinks cans, baby bottles, little cartons of milk, and washing up liquids. These will all normally have milliliters as their standard unit of measurement. So when you look at this, you'll see a small m and a small l, lowercase m and l, and that is how you would write milliliters, and that is how you would see them on these cartons. When we get to 1000 milliliters, we no longer write it as lowercase ml. It then becomes 1 litre. So there are 1000 milliliters in 1 litre. So litres are used to measure larger capacities, so larger amounts of liquid in there. As you can see, this jug has 1 L, 1 litre, 2 litre, and 3 litre as its unit of measurement. So we remember that when we're talking about litres, or the lowercase l, it can sometimes be seen as an uppercase L as well, a capital letter. Whenever we talk about litres, that is also worth 1000 milliliters. And these are also some examples given of where you would see measurements in litres, some larger containers with larger amounts of liquid in there. Now, here are just some examples of containers that I found in my kitchen that have milliliters or litres. So first of all, we have the sweet chilli sauce bottle, which has 200 milliliters of sweet chilli sauce in there. And then up here we have a bottle of lemonade, which is 2L or 2 litres of lemonade in that bottle, in that container. We could also refer to this as not only 2 litres, but as 2000 milliliters, because if we think back to how many milliliters there are in 1 litre, in 1 litre there are 1000 milliliters, and so in 2 litres there will be 2000 milliliters. Now on the right hand side here we also have a bottle of diluting juice, which is 1.5 litres or 1.5 litres. Have a look in your kitchen and see if you can find any containers that have milliliters or litres as their unit of measurement. Now here we have 3 different containers that are all used to measure capacity. One is a measuring jug, the other is a measuring cylinder, and the third one is a cup from a blender, which also has units of measurement down the side. Now we are going to be focusing on the litres and half litres measurement, so we are going to ignore the pint side and the ounces side here. Let's start with the measuring cylinder. So on here we have these measurements up and down the side, and they look like this. We have 20, then you can see here we have a little line, then we have 40, another line, 60, another line, and then we have 80. Now I want you to stop and have a think for a moment. What do you think each of these lines would represent? So have a look at this pattern. We have 20, blank, 40, blank, 60, blank, then 80. We can see that each jump is counting on by 20. However, if you want to figure out what these missing numbers are, the ones that are represented by the lines, we have to count up in tens. So, starting at 20, we then know that 10 on from 20 is 30, so we go 20, 30, 40. In between 40 and 60, we have 50, so that's 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, and then the missing one in here is 70. Although we don't have all the numbers in a measuring cylinder, if we were asked to measure, for example, 30 milliliters of water, we would know that we have 20 here, we have 40 here, so the missing number in here must be 30. So we would measure the line of water up to here. Now, when we are measuring capacity, the way we know that it's 20 milliliters is when the water level comes in line with this line here for 20 milliliters. Like so. So I'm going to pour some water in and stop, and you can see the water level is at the line for 20. I'm then going to pour it a little bit more. Now I'm going to stop it for a moment, pause it and see if you can tell me how many milliliters of water this is here. So we were at 20, we have 40 up here. Who can remember what this line represents? So how many milliliters of water do I have in this measuring cylinder? If you said 30 milliliters, well done, you are correct. Let's go on with the video. So I then pour in another 10 milliliters. That takes me up to 40. I'm a little bit over, as you can see there. So it's maybe just over 40 milliliters. That goes up to 50 milliliters. I then pour in a little bit more. Again, I put it a little bit over, so that'll be just over 60 milliliters. And then bring it up to 70. You can see it's in line with the line there. And I then bring it up, again, a little bit over, but around about 80 milliliters of water there. This time we're using a blender cup, and you can see the units of measurement this time are different. So each number jump is different to the measuring cylinder until we go up to 500 milliliters, which is also the maximum capacity for this blender. So I'm going to write out each number. So we have 100 is where it starts. It then goes to 200 milliliters, then jumps to 300 milliliters. We then go to 400 milliliters, and finally 500 milliliters. Now each jump here this time, instead of going up by 10, this time we are jumping by 100. So we're going up in hundreds this time. So again, I've used some food colouring just so it shows up clearly in the video when I pour my water in. So we're going to start by pouring in some water. I'm going to go up to 100 milliliters. You can see it's 100 milliliters because it's in line with this line here. Then I'm going to go up to 200 milliliters. I'm then going to pour in up to the next line. We'll go up to 300 milliliters. And that is 300 milliliters of water in that container. And finally, we're going to look at the measuring jugs. Remember, we're looking at this side because we're looking at litres and milliliters, not pints. Now, this one is jumping up in a different number this time. And this one's a bit trickier because you've got a quarter litre here and a half litre here. So we're going to talk about those in a moment. So on this measuring jug, our first line is at 50 milliliters. We then jump to 100, then 150, 200. Now we're not quite sure about this one, it's a quarter litre, so we'll leave this one blank for now. We then have 300 milliliters, 350, 400, 450, and then a half litre, which again we're going to leave blank for now until we figure out what number these are. So take a moment, pause this video, see if you can work out what number we are jumping by this time. How much are we increasing the number by on each jump? It might be helpful if you ignore the 0 on the end of it and think about what it would be then. So for example, if I were to cover the last zeros, we're then going up in 5, 10, 15, 20, you might recognise that a bit more. But with the units, we're going up in 50, 100, 150, 200. Next would come 250, 300, 350, 400, 450, and 500. On this measuring jug, we are jumping up in 50 milliliters in each jump. You could also work this out by looking back at our missing add-end questions from last week and figure out 50 plus what would equal 100, because that is what we're jumping by each time. Because of this, we've also just worked out that 250 was in place with 1/4 of a litre. So 250 milliliters is 1/4 of 1 litre. And we put 500 in place of half a litre. So 500 milliliters is half of 1 litre, or half of 1000 milliliters. This time I'm going to pour the water in, and I want you to tell me how much water I've poured into the measuring jug. So I want you to read the measuring jug, tell me how much is in there. If you said 150 milliliters, well done, give yourself a tick. You can see here that the water line goes up to 150 milliliters, and so that is how much water is in the jug. Let's try a couple of more of those. So I'm going to pour some more water in now, and I want you to tell me how many milliliters of water are in the measuring jug. So how many are here? It's at 1/4 of a litre. How many milliliters is that? If you said 250 milliliters, give yourself a tick. Well done. Let's try the next one. How many milliliters of water do I have now? If you said 300 milliliters, give yourself a tick. Well done. Finally, I'm going to leave you with this question. Which one of these two containers do you think is holding more water? Do you think this one is, the glass tall cylinder, or do you think this plastic bowl is? This is actually a trick question. They are both holding the same amount of water, and this just shows you how different water can look depending on the container it's in. So in the glass one, it filled all the way to the top, and in the plastic bowl, it barely even reached 1/4 of the way. As always, Primary, if you have any questions about what we have learnt today, please do not hesitate to ask your class teacher. There are now tasks posted on the website to help with this learning. If you feel you need to, come back to this video and watch it again to help further your understanding of capacity. Thank you for listening.